This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Well, events are being held around the country today to demand a new trial for the Georgia death row prisoner Troy Anthony Davis. Davis, African-American, convicted for the 1989 killing of a white police officer. Since the trial, 7 of the 9 non-police witnesses have recanted their testimony. 3 witnesses say another man later admitted to the killing. That man, Sylvester Red Coles, was at the scene of the shooting and is one of the 2 witnesses who have not recanted their testimony against Davis. The other witness to stand by his testimony initially told police he could not identify the shooter except by his clothes. There's also no direct physical evidence tying Davis to the crime scene. A 30-day stay of execution expired Saturday, following last month's decision by a federal appeals court to reject a new trial for Davis. Davis's lawyers are filing last-ditch appeals today to the Supreme Court. The attorneys will ask that the case be sent back to a federal judge for an evidentiary hearing that would include witnesses whose testimony has never been heard in court. Today's Global Day of Action for Troy Davis is being marked with rallies in cities including Austin, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. The day also coincides with Malcolm X's birthday, born 79 years ago today. Well, I'm joined now by 2 guests. Larry Cox is Executive Director of Amnesty International USA, which has vocally been championing Davis's case. Larry Cox joins me here in the Firehouse studio via video stream. We're joined by Troy Davis's older sister, Martina Correa. She has led the campaign to save her brother's life. Larry Cox, start off by laying out this case very quickly for people who aren't familiar with it and why you're so involved, why Amnesty is so involved.
Because for those of us who have been working on this for a long time, and I've been doing it for more than 3 decades, I don't know of another case that screams out injustice like this case. This is someone where 7 of the 9 witnesses, as you said, have recanted their testimony. There's no physical evidence linking him to the crime. There's such a strong presumption or such a reasonable doubt about that to put him to death would be really a crime upon a crime. So we are deeply concerned about this case, and it's not only people in this country, it's people all around the world. There'll be rallies in many different countries around the world. The European Union just issued an appeal. The Pope has issued an appeal. Everyone who looks at the evidence knows that this is an egregious injustice.
Yet the Federal Appeals Court had a 2-to-1 decision, although the dissenting judge in the case wrote, to execute Davis in the face of a significant amount of proffered evidence that may establish his actual innocence is unconscionable and unconstitutional.
And what is most shameful about this is the way the courts have hid behind technicalities to not even look at the evidence. He's never had a chance to present this new evidence of innocence in a court of law. That's all he's asking. But they've hidden behind the technicalities, and that's been easier to do because of the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act, which makes it very, very difficult, even in cases where there's strong evidence of innocence, to get it heard before a court.
Martina Correa, you have been fighting your own battle for life as you fight breast cancer. You're very well known as a breast cancer survivor, fighter for people to get health care. You were honored along with Nancy Pelosi here in New York by the National Breast Cancer Coalition. President Jimmy Carter has issued an appeal on your brother's behalf. Where does your hope lie right now? Speaking to us from Savannah, Georgia.
My hope lies with the people, because people are standing up all over the world in solidarity for Troy and solidarity for justice. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take people to start demanding that these barbaric and archaic laws are repealed and never put on the books again. It's going to take people fighting and saying that it should be an abomination that in the United States, one of the global powers of the world, that it's not unconstitutional to execute an innocent person. And so we are standing, not only people from Amnesty International, but a coalition of organizations that have actually never come together, that are all saying we must stand against this, we must fight this injustice, and we need to end the death penalty because we can't afford to keep executing innocent people.
The case with one person after another, the non-police witnesses, recanting their testimony, why did they give false testimony to begin with? Let me put that to Martina.
Well, you know, in the recantations and the affidavits that these people put forth, you know, a lot of them had criminal background. Some of them were teenagers. Some of them were they were interrogated for 6 and 7 hours without lawyers, without parents, and they were, you know, threatened to be charged as accessory to murder of a police officer, to never come out of prison. And when you have those type of people that you can manipulate, and when you're interrogating somebody for 6 and 7 hours, like the witnesses said, they were so tired of being there that they just started repeating what the police wanted them to say. Some people, one person couldn't even read and write the statement that he signed against my brother. He just wanted to leave. One witness had parole violations, and she was scared of losing her children going back to prison. So these were people that were very easily manipulated. They had really no case against Troy. They knew nothing about what was going on until Sylvester Red Coles, the only person that night that had a .38 caliber weapon, the same caliber weapon the police officer was killed with, that came forward with a lawyer and said, oh, Troy did it. But he never told the police till some weeks later that he even was carrying a gun that night and that he got into an altercation. So the thing about it is that these people were easily manipulated. They built this case around Troy with no physical evidence, no DNA. And what they did is they ran on the excitement and the adrenaline that we have to get somebody for this police officer's murder. We have to appease the community. And, you know, it got to the point where they were attacking so many black men that it's like any black man will do. And when Sylvester Coles came and pointed at Troy, everything dropped and they just built a case around Troy.
Before we end this broadcast, I wanted to ask you, Larry Cox, about another case about a man who is scheduled to die tomorrow. Yes. His name is Dennis Skilcorn. 12 current and former prison staffers at Potosi gave statements for his clemency petition. Their efforts were joined last week by the Missouri legislator Stephen Tilley, the majority leader of the Missouri House, who has called for the commutation of Skilcorn's sentence to life in prison. He doesn't deny he's been involved with crimes, though he wasn't the shooter. Why are you pushing hard on this case? Why are these people all coming out?
Well, there are two reasons. One is it's another example of the insanity of the system. Here's another case where somebody made a statement that was never heard in the court, but if it had been heard, he probably would not have been given the death penalty. The man who did commit the murder said Skilcorn had no idea that a murder was going to take place.
And that man is on death row, but he will not die before Skilcorn if he's killed tomorrow.
And one of the other people was given life imprisonment. So it just shows the arbitrariness of it. But the other reason is that Skilcorn himself is, by all accounts, become an extraordinary human being. And this illustrates one of the central truths about the death penalty, that the person you kill is often not the same person who committed the crime. He has become a model prisoner. He has reached out to the victims of crime, to restorative justice. He's worked in a hospice. He's helped young offenders. And that's the reason why you have this incredible assembly of people from the corrections department. You have Republicans, you have Democrats, you have people of faith, all speaking out saying what purpose could possibly be served by killing this man who has become, by all accounts, a very good man.
In Dennis Skilcorn's case, he said, if I had 3 lifetimes, I know I can't repay society for the things I've done, but I think we have a responsibility to build up what we once tore down with our criminal behavior. I want to thank you both for being with us. We just have 10 seconds, but Martina, what is Troy Davis saying today on this global day of action, your brother on death row?
Well, I actually just talked to Troy maybe like 30 minutes ago, and he said that he wants everybody to know that even though this is the hardest thing he's had to face in his life, that he knows with all of us a change is coming, and that change is more powerful because people are standing up for human rights, and that's what it's all about. And he wants them to know that continue to fight, that this is bigger than Troy Davis. This is about human rights for all.
I want to thank you for being with us. Martina Correa from Savannah, Georgia. Her T-shirt for our radio listeners says, I am Troy Davis. And Larry Cox, Executive Director of Amnesty International USA. You can go to our website at democracynow.org for all of our coverage of the Troy Davis case. Democracy Now! Produced by Mike Berkshire, Hoda Kadu, Sarah Mata, Angela Kamet, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Masood, Robbie Karen. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.